I assumed really early on, and I still believe this today, all these years later, is the worst thing in the world you can do is not have a process or a system, whatever it is. And the one thing I didn't want to do is you and I embarked on this journey is to hire 4 or 5 sellers and everybody kind of doing it their own way. Because then if that's the case, I don't, whether it's finance or operations or sales or anything else, if you've got multiple parties doing things different ways, you really can't create consistency. And I think that one of the things I've said for years is people want predictability. They want predictability with the technology. They want predictability with the provider. And same thing in the sales process. We need as much predictability as possible when we're dealing with very unpredictable people. So how do we stack the odds in our favor when we can? It's just kind of micro movements in the journey. And so that's my belief system in having a system, whatever it is. But it feels like it's always the people.
David, how did you find yourself in this crazy MSP world?
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me. So 2000, it was before that. I'd say in about 2000, I knew that I wanted to move out of the space of working from someone else and owning my own business. And at the time, I had a friend I went to church with, and we decided that it'd be kind of fun to launch a MSP together. But that was before there was such thing as an MSP. So started traditional consulting, I would say, IT consulting, which then turned into our ability to just grow the business and made the transition into managed services a couple of years later, and the rest is kind of history.
That's awesome. And you did it for a good, 15 years or so before you had a really successful merge. Is that right?
10, yeah. So I ran it 10 years. In 2015, did a merger acquisition with another organization that was about 90 miles south of our location, and still working in it today.
You had, I remember when you did that, and I was really excited for you, and I still am. But what prompted you? 'Cause you were still a young guy, you had a lot of fight in you, you were having some amazing success. What prompted you to make that decision to go ahead and do that merge?
I'll tell you, I got a call from Cogent Partners, Cogent Mergers, whatever Cogent that does M&A stuff, and they asked me if I'd have any interest in selling. I said absolutely not, but I am in the market to buy. And they said, well, it wouldn't hurt to meet these guys, right? And so, it was one of those things that the first time I ever met my business partners, Jake and Buddy, um, we just hit it off. Like we had such common, like our visions were very aligned and alike. Our morals, our cultures, and outside of our organization, and um, really just decided that it'd be an interesting ride to try and do this together instead of doing it on my own any longer. And so that was kind of the catalyst for it: is right place, right time, right people, the right story.
Yeah, that's cool. And there's a lot in there that you've got that thing. And I've shared this with you and a lot of people that typically we see, it's not prescriptive, just descriptive. That typically people last, sellers last about 7 months in the new organization before it just isn't going to work for them for whatever reason, not a good reasons, bad reasons. You've lasted years and years and years. What was that? You kind of mentioned you and your new partner were really well aligned. How challenging was it for you, though, to kind of take that different seat on the bus? Was
It's
it?
hard. It's still hard today. Yeah, I mean, my personality is one of super high autonomy, probably like a lot of us, right? It's like, let's make a decision on where we need to go. What are my boundaries and resources, and stay out of the way, kind of thing. And so I'd say that, Josh, going into the transaction in 2015, my most challenging soul searching moment was really, can I be a good business partner to someone else? And when we originally started my first MSP, United Systems, I had a business partner. He exited the business to take a CIO position, and ultimately they were a client of ours. And so I bought his shares. There's conflict of interest for him to be involved in both organizations. So it went from having a partner to not having a partner, which then brought me back to an opportunity to make a decision this time on how I wanted to approach it. But I figured, you know, assuming the ends justifies the means in this whole thing, that it's probably better to give up a little bit of say, if you will, and work together. So yeah, it's been tough at times. But at the same time, I think that's where a lot of growth and just maturing comes just as a person in general. I, uh,
Right.
different
Right. And
strengths. I learn a lot from those guys every day.
yeah, and one of the things I always kind of noticed about you and of many owners, but you in particular, I picked up on a lot of you had high conviction. You did not, suffer from uncertainty or not being able to make decisions. You were always good at that. You were great at looking at the data, the numbers. Like there's so many things that suggested that you were definitely built to be on your own and be successful with it. So really kudos to you for kind of figuring out where do I want to go and what's the best path to get there, and this merge spoke to you and said, this is the best path, but you went into it eyes wide open, knowing, hey, I'm going to have to, see a little bit of the ultimate decision making. And David, when one of the roles that I know you've had, or that I think I recall you having, was you were in charge of a sales team for a period of time. Do I remember that correctly?
Yep.
And I know also that you had some success in building a sales team, and it was success or not, you were really good at building the structure of it and, hiring some really great people. Did you feel really prepared for that role of I'm in charge of growth and sales here? Or did you have to do some quick, kind of learning to be as good at it as you would need to be?
Well, I mean, how do I answer that? Okay, so I started that journey with you back in 2011, as you remember, knowing that I couldn't get to where I needed to be, being the person that was the one actually doing all of the prospecting and tactical sales and leaning on referral-based opportunities and just how we all kind of grow our businesses organically. So I had a run of about 4 years trying to hire, manage, kind of nurture some salespeople, kind of going into the transaction, um, up until, well, for quite a long period of time. What I've said is I took a temporary role as our CRO, director of development, whatever you want to call it, charge of sales and marketing, that lasted 10 years. So I'm not sure if it was no good deed will go unpunished, or we were still trying to figure it out. But it wasn't until just very recently that I moved into a new role inside the organization. So I've been running sales and marketing for the firm for 10 years. And so did I feel prepared? Absolutely not. I'm not like a sales leader. I don't have that background where I grew up. I knocked on doors to grow our business, but it wasn't one of those things like, I've got a deep pedigree at IBM or something like that, where I did a ton of sales training. Um, I am a bit of a constant learner, right? Kind of Kaizen principle, always constant improvement kind of thing, test, measure, adjust. And so that's really how we built our sales organization over many years. I mean, they're relatively small but mighty, and it's how do you keep good talent and drive great MRR and account based, and understanding the challenge it is not all revenue is good revenue, right? So how do you put some layers into the equation to make sure that you're landing the most likely client partners to help your business grow effectively?
David, I remember in your early days, in that kind of 2011, 12, 13 era, when, one of the things that I saw you do a lot of is, really build great system. I'm always remembering your very creative use of the surveys in ConnectWise PSA, and like salespeople have to have these things, filled out in order to request a technician coming on site. And I always thought, man, that's so detailed and awesome. So I think you definitely native to you, the system of selling was you came to you pretty early, and I would say naturally. What was a couple of the challenges that you faced once you started building a sales team of people? Now you have people in the equation of, I've got a system and I did that. Now, how do I keep the people, on the rails?
Yeah, great question. It My biggest challenge was finding people that were willing to actually work the system. And then I don't give up very well, and I don't give up on people. And so probably like a lot of us, it's like you kind of hire them and they're your person. And so I would want to compel them to work inside the system, right? Like almost squeeze them into it. We knew the system worked, the process worked, but it was somewhat unnatural for people that had a lot of selling experience and history, we'll say. But one of the things that I assumed really early on, and I still believe this today, all these years later, is the worst thing in the world you can do is not have a process or a system, whatever it is. And the one thing I didn't want to do is you and I embarked on this journey is to hire 4 or 5 sellers and everybody kind of doing it their own way. Because then if that's the case, I don't, whether it's finance or operations or sales or anything else, if you've got multiple parties doing things different ways, you really can't create consistency. And I think that one of the things I've said for years is people want predictability. They want predictability with the technology. They want predictability with the provider and the outcomes. And same thing in the sales process. We need as much predictability as possible when we're dealing with very unpredictable people. And so how do we stack the odds in our favor when we can with these just kind of micro movements in the journey? And so that's my belief system in having a system, whatever it is, but feels like it's always the people, no matter what the topic.
Yeah, and with that, David, now that I'm presuming you've hired and unfortunately probably let go a few salespeople, you've got lots of repetitions in now. One of the things that uh, I get faced with as a consultant a lot is, what type of salesperson should I hire? And I don't know if it's just through me looking through it through one lens, or I'm just used to doing it the same way every time. My answer is typically, hire somebody really junior, teach them, about you, get them falling in love with you and the business, put them in a good system and just coach them up over time, as opposed to going and finding that really kind of senior person or person presenting as being a senior person and then having to battle them in terms of letting them work however they want to work. That's typically how I go. How well do you align with that? Your experience is more relevant than mine, I believe, at this point. What end of the spectrum do you look to hire at?
100%. I agree. We'd rather grow talent and teach them our bad habits than try and remap what they already bring to the table. Bad habit wise. Because at least we know our habits are consistent and we can manage to them and through them. And so my biggest challenges have been with people with too much experience in sales, the marketplace. I think that probably one of my really early lessons learned, you'll remember the Brad,
Of
who of
course.
course,
God bless the Brad.
somewhat legendary. He was my first exposure to what I refer to as a transactional salesperson. So like one of the things I didn't ask in interviews early on is like in a good week, month, or quarter, how many deals do you typically close? And if they come from a background that they're like, oh, I close 30, 40, 50 transactions a month, like they'll be miserable in this space because they don't understand that a couple of really great deals a month or a quarter can make your month or quarter, right? And that's all we need in our business, assuming your retention is where it needs to be. So, um, yeah, we still today have our best success with, we'll call them junior sellers, that we navigate up the system and educate them on what it's like.
Right, right. And I hear we work with some larger organizations now, and maybe the sales manager has some experience outside of the industry, or maybe they just kind of have their own belief system. And one of yeah, this a particular phase comes to mind of having this conversation with this person, and they really push back hard, and they're smart. We don't see eye to eye, but one of their kind of counter arguments to the system is, okay, great, Josh. So you're telling me hire somebody junior, train them up. Well, then they're just going to leave, and I'll have wasted all that time. And my response was like, dude, that's like the best scenario you could find out of all the crappy scenarios. That one is the one I'm least afraid of. But that was almost a showstopper for that person. And they're so smart and they're a really cool person. Maybe you could add some color to that, 'cause I don't think he's dead wrong, but I think his application of that logic was just a little off point from my point. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you have to develop um, again, as you grow and you have more free cash flow to invest in people, and you want to do we'll say do this right, whatever right means, you have to anticipate that turnover. And I think that you appreciate when someone sticks and you anticipate that they're not going to, and you do it before you ever make the hire. So as you kind of move people up and through the system, and the same goes for talent on the IT side. I mean, think about it. It's like, I don't know, it wasn't that many years ago that we couldn't keep cybersecurity talent because Raymond James kept coming in our backyard and poaching our people, right? And once we lost one, then they started referring their buddies in, and like I could not outbid Raymond James to keep talent on the team. And now we've got automation engineers that are just flying out the door because people are willing to pay more. So I think that almost regardless of what the role, um, nobody is going to be as committed to you and your organization than you are. So you just kind of have to accept that. Well-intentioned people, but they should do what's best for their family as well. And I think sellers are the same way. Um, so yeah, it's how do you there's a selling system that you take out on the marketplace, that selling motion from a first appointment to, the proposal signature and get the deal booked. But then there's also this system that you create within your organization of people growth. If you want to go this approach, of how you grow them up and either out, and you just celebrate that. But I think that goes for partner success or VCIOs. I think it goes in the service team. I think it's one of the things that we focused on is how do we bring more people in kind of at the lower levels and grow them up where they've got the right culture? How do you find the right people and help them develop the talent versus trying to find a bunch of unicorns all over the place? Who knows what you're going to get, but you're going to have a lot more misery and pain trying to make that perfect hire every time.
We'll be right back with more, but first, here's a quick message from Bering McKinley.
Most MSPs are constantly busy, chasing tickets, projects, and fires. But without structure, it's hard to know if the business is really improving. Vision from Bering McKinley is the system that helps you work on your business, not just in it. It connects leadership strategy with daily execution. Vision aligns people, process, and performance, creating clarity and rhythm from goals to results. And the Vision app brings that structure to life, helping you create policies, track goals, review KPIs, and collaborate with your BMK consultant all in one place. Behind it all, Jetson AI, your assistant inside Vision, helps you find answers, generate insights, and take action faster. With Vision, you gain visibility, accountability, and measurable growth. You're not guessing, you're improving. Vision, Jetson, and the Vision app, your path from strategy to results. Start transforming your business today.
All right, let's get back to the conversation.
That's right. David, I've got you and I spent some good time together, and there's a few moments of our kind of relationship that form stories that I have told dozens, if not hundreds of times at this point. And I'm going to bring you back to one of them just so I can fact check myself a little bit on one of them.
Okay.
The first time you came up to Chicago, we met, we're sitting at that table, we're eating flavored almonds, we're having a great time. And this was early days, and you were wrapping your head around agreement gross profit, and you're wrapping your head around effective hourly rate. And I remember having one of those sticky whiteboard, papers on the wall, and we were doing some math. And when we got down into the effective hourly rate, you didn't cry, but it was probably the most upset I've seen you of, hey, I'm looking at these agreements, I'm building a good portfolio. And when we started exploring the effective hourly rate, the number was really low. Do you remember this at all, by the way?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it was one of those moments that, you know, I was like, hey, this is really important. This person is seeing something in that effective hourly rate that they don't like and they're a little surprised by. And I use that story a lot of times as an example for these owners who are saying, this is hard. I don't trust my numbers. I think I'm good. And I'm like, are you though? Now, fast forward all these years. So whatever, weight that moment had for you, fast forward, all these 15, 20 years later, 15 years probably, how important is that effective hourly rate and that agreement gross profit as you are now a much bigger, mature company? Are those blocking and tackling still important to measure and manage too?
No, once we got past like 15 employees, all of our problems went away, Josh.
Is
It was,
that's all it takes?
yeah,
15
that
employees.
was it. It was just the
Yeah.
15th, and we're good.
Great, great.
So, as the good Lord is my witness, yesterday I repeated Josh Peterson that says if we can't make money with managed services and hit our AGP and create leverage, we might as well be doing teamwork, right? So, literally made that statement over here in the office I'm in today. Yeah, I mean it's paramount. It doesn't change no matter how small or big you are. As you get larger, you have more insulation, where you can sustain some. I don't want to call them bad relationships. One of the other things that's really interesting, even still today, our favorite people are usually our worst performers, like client wise.
Oh,
We've got a love and affinity for them, and so I guess to kind of piggyback on this, one of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of years is we've been forcing our team to go back and re-sign contracts with people. So um, I still believe it's a relatively rare thing. I think as an industry, we're sign it once, stick our head in the sand, and if they don't ask, we're not going to bring it up. Like they might shop us, right? They might fire us, things like that. What that does is it forces us back to the table to look very discreetly relationship by relationship to make sure that number one, we can go through things like doesn't have the right security stack or the service is right, is the legal instruments correct to protect our organization, because things shift over time. But it also allows us to really focus heavily on the financial piece of that relationship to make sure that we're right. Typically we can't make it all up in one fell swoop, but we can get closer to wherever we're at today. So there's a handful of things that we've done to really help with that over time. That's just one of them. The challenge for, I think, all of us, again, I've got my Davidisms. I talk about stranger pricing, right? So we walk into a new account, we're counting workstations and endpoints, maybe users. We maybe throw a variable two on top of it because we feel like they're well put together. They're a hot mess, but ultimately we're just going to roll the dice and we're going to give them a fixed price for an unfixed level of service. At some point, you have to have a way to go back and remeasure that, and really you have to have the wherewithal to know when to call it quits if you made a bad decision and make adjustments.
okay, so just so I get this right, you go back and you have some re-signatures on the contracts. Is that every client, or is that clients you've identified as, maybe more at-risk clients? Tell us a little bit more about that.
We do it a couple of different ways. So number one, we look for any agreement that is aged out. So typically 3 or more years old, 3 to 5 years, kind of depending on what the original term of the agreement was. We also nominate people. So we may elevate them if we know that they're aged out and they're not hitting the right agreement growth profitability. Another thing that we look at is our agreements are designed in such a way that I talk about a floor with no ceiling. So whatever their kind of entry point in is, and then any additional unit, whatever that unit is going to add to the monthly fee. If you don't do that as an MSP, you're crazy. Like, do it. One of the very psychological things that does is, as I refer to it as a dirty invoice, as those additional items start stacking up, it creates an amazing pathway and conduit for you to say to a client partner, hey, listen, let's clean this up, right? And it brings back that they don't like paying the overages, and there's a lot you can do with reworking the dollars in that thing and really just getting creative on how you get somebody to resign and stick with you for another 3 years instead of these 1-year evergreen. And again, we should be strengthening the legal stance of how we're looking at things and cancellation policies and what might have worked 5 years probably doesn't work today. So it's all for all that. So there's a handful of ways that we do it. We're doing, I would say, in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 resigns a month, plus or minus. We probably do 15 or 20 a quarter. When you think about your client base, a 3-year agreement, you just divide that by 3, and that's how many you got to do a year. And just kind of, it's a 20-mile march kind of thing. If you believe in it, you have to have the same discipline of going after that as you do signing that new.
Understood. Oh, that's very interesting. David, I've got two more topics I want to touch on. I'm gonna ask about, in your organization, you probably have people out trying to get new deals, new logos. and you probably have some account managers in there as well.
Correct. Yeah.
One of these roles that I've seen kind of emerging over the last couple of years is this client success manager. And I'm coming around to it. I like the idea of it. The way it's been explained to me is, hey, this person isn't quota based, they're not sales based, but they have this responsibility to like ensuring the client is really happy and that they're responsible for the client experience beyond just the day-to-day support that goes on. Um, again, I'm warming to it, but have you heard of this role? And B, do you guys employ this role?
I'm familiar with it. We don't today. We're always looking at how do we kind of re-tier our talent, serve our clients best. But no, our resources are, I'd say, a little more traditional in that. Um, One of the things that we do have that's somewhat helpful, very different role, but we have solutions architects, so their job is to only help design the solutions, and they're usually sales engineers, if you will. Um, it's probably important to point out, like, the core of our business, like our ICP is still 75 users or less. So we're not doing big enterprise. We're not doing a ton of mid market. We got a handful of those accounts, but that's not what's kind of put us where we're at today. It's 25 to 75 employees.
Right.
So most of the time they want to have fewer people involved in the relationship, that kind of person that they trust and know and they're comfortable with. So we still use the what I'll call traditional account management structure.
Sure. Sure. All right, I'm going to switch gears on us one more time. David, you spent a fair amount of time, being a peer team facilitator with our peer teams, which was awesome. You did a lot of our courses, our service manager course, sales manager course. And one of the things that I loved, and I wonder how much you get to use it today, is your always and never list. And I've told various people about it over time, but sometime in the last 6 months, I kind of threw that out there, not like a throwaway statement, but I wasn't really emphasizing that point. And by the end of my conversation with the person, I was like, "Hey, was this a good use of your time? Give me your key takeaways." And he said, "Oh, the always and never list. That is brilliant. I'm so excited." And this person's actually done something really nice with it. Is the always and never still part of your ethos and your leadership kind of format?
No, we don't use it as much as we used to. I'm sad to
Yeah.
say. Yeah. No. But it's good to go back to the roots with it. Yeah.
You say that last part again?
And it's good to go back to the roots every now and again and just, revisit it, but now we don't use it like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, maybe it's just one of those kind of transitional things that you do to kind of say, as you develop as a leader, to kind of know, well, this we should just obviously never do. These things are what we should always do. And maybe those just get more organically built into your system and the culture of the business. But I loved seeing it, and I was excited to hear someone else excited about it as well.
Yeah. And I think I sense that one of the bigger transitions I went through is as I moved 10 years ago into a more focused role. Like I did lose some of the autonomy to kind of do whatever I wanted to do in a lot of cases, right? There's different checksums in place um, where we kind of backed into our own, like, always and never list independently as we kind of worked as a team trying to grow the business. And so I think that stuff kind of still manifests itself through, but just in a very different way.
That's right. That's right. And David, you had mentioned you're recently taking on a new role in the organization. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Really? Yeah.
And it's a mouthful, or maybe it's just a tongue twister for me. What is this title again?
I'm the Chief Transformation Officer here at Entech.
Transformation Officer. And so what does that mean?
So, well, as I mentioned to some people, it's what they do with guys like me that they're not sure what to do with, right?
There you go.
So, having done this as long as I have, I think there's a lot of opportunity to help in various ways. So I almost think of myself as a project mercenary inside this business. So, I can move on, to the finance side. I can help a little bit in HR. We've got specialists that are way better than I could ever be at their job. But one of the things that we've seen as we've grown is we'll bring people in that are really good at their specialty, but they don't understand how to crosswalk it to the industry. And so those challenges become pretty evident quickly as we try and plan and grow and scale. And so my big initiatives right now is mergers and acquisitions. So finding opportunities, working through the diligence process, getting the deal closed, and we've got a pretty tight 6-month acquisition integration project that we run. And so it's to get the new branches or tuck-ins stood up inside of our platform and move on to the next one. And then in the meantime, if we got a little bit of downtime, I can help another facets and area to the business.
Okay, so I think I get a sense of that role now a little better. So there's a company, and I can't remember their name. They're like well over 100 million by now. I think they're Florida based. They're just on. They've been buying and merging for a couple years now, and it's a really cool guy. And he came and spoke at one of our peer teams, and he shared with us that he kind of has this project plan that it's like and I'm probably gonna, bastardize it a little bit, but basically said this project plan is our key to success when we have a merger. Uh, their team sees it, my team sees it, and we work it. And there's so many great things about it that the acquired team kind of knows, hey, we have a plan and we've thought of these things, so no one's just coming in loosey goosey. And then he said, and also just make sure we have a good merge, that the outcome is really good. Are you guys similar? Do you work from a project plan that's real well defined for all the parties, or is it something totally different?
No, we do. Yeah. So we have a resource that has built out an extremely complex and detailed project plan that blows my mind some days with all the little nuances. But when you think about the complexity of the different tools and the interconnects that they all have, and I mean, shoot, I was working on something this weekend, just the branding cutover. I put 75 things on a spreadsheet that we have to think through, right? So from social media to how are we, rebranding the buildings, to branded apparel, to the timing, all of that. So, and you look at every piece of the business connected to that. How do you learn the new product stacks? How do you integrate what they used to sell versus what the current stack is? How do you support that effectively? How do you get synergies with the team? Because most of the time, I mean, some people are doing M&A and leaving that newly acquired asset as a standalone entity, like there's no integration at all or very light integration. That's not what we do. We do full integration. So they take on our brand. We're all on the same systems. And so we essentially have 6 months. We do a 30, 60, 90-day plan. So first 30 days, second 60 days, which is 90 days total, and then 90 on top of that. So we call integration complete. And at that point, the offices are all rebranded. We're all on the same PSA. We're all running on the same CPQ. We're running the same stack we put out in the field. So even if they were on, Fortinet, and we do Sonic Wall, we're only doing Sonic Wall moving forward, that kind of thing. And so we have to kind of work through, again, the people aspect of that. Like there's a lot of social engineering to get people aligned with some of the particulars on it. But yeah, we work from a very detailed plan. And I think that the sooner you can show that to people, the better they kind of have confidence. Because one of the things you hear was, we thought you guys had this better put together. And no matter what you do, how much planning you do, the wheels are going to come off the vehicle really quick with some unintended consequences that you don't even see or anticipate, no matter how well you plan these things out.
Yeah, as you're saying that, that really kind of hits home for me. I think folks that have done like one merger, or they're doing their first, or maybe even their second, there's this kind of following their gut, and their gut kind of really misleads them a lot of time. They do the things that are most obvious to them first, and the thing that becomes really obvious to them first is to start worrying about merging the PSA like really early. And man, it's almost a deal killer. It's almost a high probability of this whole thing is going to go crazy. You're asking a new team to use a new system. They're already probably on a little bit of edge, and you've taken the one thing that they're really familiar with and said that's going to change really early. I guess I don't hate doing it early if it's attached to a great project plan. But if you wouldn't mind sharing, where does that PSA integration fall in your plan? Is that in that first 30 days? Is that on the tail end? How does it work for you guys?
No, I mean timing plays a little bit of a role. So like the deal we just closed beginning of this month. We're not going to have the PSA cut over until February 1. So like
Okay.
90 days. If it weren't going into the holidays, we may be able to escalate that by 30 days, maybe. Um, but like we're always in this interesting slot where we know we're not like that's the first true big step of integration, I think, systematically in the way that we support client partners. But for us, the first period is how do you integrate the people, right? The people and the culture. And so like we kind of take them in weekly sprints. So the week 1 sprint is making sure that the people get paid. So we get them onboarded, benefits get onboarded. They're comfortable there, run our first payroll, and we've got good visibility to the vendors. And so vendors can be paid, right? So we solve
Right.
that piece first. And then like the second phase is, we're starting to get into like email systems and getting they got dual accounts set up. And how do we start to very slowly, opportunistically integrate the teams on some things, like some escalation, maybe outside the normal pod where we may be out, maybe at. So like 6 months goes really, really fast, but it's also plenty of time to kind of do it right if you do have that good plan. And so a lot of it's just executing against the plan. One of the other things we do is we have a weekly call. So every single week, all the stakeholders in the project get on it. What'd you get accomplished? What's the focus for the next 7 days? Kind of thing. What's the bottleneck? So like my job is not to do it all, but my job is to help remove bottlenecks and create visibility for our senior leadership team to kind of help push and pull things along when need be. And just make sure that things stay on track and we can understand, how do we start to realize some of those synergies that we anticipate. That's part of the transaction, because if you're not going to do that, what's the purpose? And so,
Mm. Yeah, that's really, really insightful, David. I appreciate you sharing that because I know that's whether it's a $2 million company buying $1 million company or really large folks doing the same. I think it's a very common thing that's happening with a lot of MSPs every week, every month. So uh, it's it's a very overwhelming transaction, whether you're on the buy or the sell side. Even just getting through the transaction of buying, I feel like a lot of folks, like, their energy is just completely depleted, and they're just kind of fingers crossed that everything goes well, and they're worried about, are we going to lose the clients? Are we going to lose any key employees? And yeah, I think it's so tough, so tough. But good for you guys for finding a system that's working for that. Is that maybe not even just you guys, but do you think, what do you think we're going to see in the next 4 or 5 years within acquisitions and mergers? Especially MSP to MSP mergers and acquisitions. Do you have any sort of crystal ball that you're looking into?
well, I mean, we did a recap with an equity partner in 2022, and we're the first platform that they've brought into their portfolio. What we're already starting to see is some of these, like, I'll call them super aggregators or like regional aggregators that are buying some larger MSPs. And I think that's going to continue. I mean, it's just really hard to build client base. We know, driving organic sales, and so um, like whether you've done it or not done it, I think what is super important for you that we're continuing to be reminded of by our equity sponsors is we're trying to build enterprise value. Goes back to what you started with. If you do not have a really solid organic sales engine, like buying your way to a number through M&A is a bit of a false positive in your journey. Um, it's a way to amplify what you're able to do organically, but the key is you've got to be able to have a consistent methodology at how you attract new partners and clients, sell them at the right price, drive that agreement gross profitability the way that it needs to be. But you don't know that on the front end, but you need a price it and package itself to where you can win most of the time. And you have to have a super solid organic growth engine on how you continue to penetrate those accounts with value-added products and services and new services, right? So how do you design new things to find white space in those accounts to grow them? And when you can do that, the M&A becomes way easier because you already have a business system that you're running. It's well beyond like the service desk and SLAs, you really start to develop a lot of the best practices inside your organization, whether you're large or small. One of the other things that I've mentioned, Josh, that we've made this mistake twice. We're so dumb that we'll do the same thing over again just to remind ourselves of what a bad decision it was the first time. Is if you try and do an acquisition of an organization that is too close to your size, it is really like it just makes the challenges that much more challenging.
Really?
Yeah, because I think what happens is you get into this more like when we did the transaction in 2015, my MSP and Entech were roughly the same size. So one had 17 employees, down at 14. One was doing like 2.4 million. The other one was doing like 2.2, 2.3. So we were really close in size. And you get this kind of strange sibling rivalry that happens between the organizations and then you find yourself in this really bad spot where you say things like, well, you guys are doing some stuff right, and we're doing some stuff right, so we're just going to reassess the whole, and we're going to take the best of everything. And while that sounds really great, you can't do business that way, right? And what also happens is that, like, we made the mistake of we took the best of everybody's benefits plan. So, like, the legacy Entech had paid for health insurance for all the employees. Well, United Systems had a stipend, but we did 401ks. And so as we start putting all that together, everybody wanted the best of all the benefits. They got really expensive really fast for us to try and operate a business, right? And so as you start to grow, and if you can find opportunities where there is a little bit of a delta, it makes it a little bit easier to come in and kind of put whatever your system or your model is in place with a lot less negotiating after the fact. Where I think that if they're similar sizes, there's some more emotional conversations that happen with maybe a seller on what we're going to adopt, what we're not going to adopt.
That makes so much sense as you say it. I never would have just kind of organically thought that, but that makes so much sense. Well, good, David. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and your stories. I think there's a lot of great things that people are going to be able to hear in this. And if you're watching this, make a comment. Tell us where David's spot on. Tell him where I'm off base. Leave some comments. If we earned it, go ahead and give us a like, a share, a subscribe. It means a lot to us. And David, where can people find you out in the world?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up. Our business is Entech, so it's entechus.com is our website. And yeah, just find me there.
Sounds good. Thanks, David. I appreciate you joining us here today.
My pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, guys.